Welcome back, Protein Bros. We are here on another episode of the Protein Bros podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Wasserman, and Kyle is actually joining me for this episode, so let's get excited. Today we sat down with someone who I have an unbelievable great admiration for, Barry Rubin, former strength and conditioning coach, head strength and conditioning coach for the Green Bay Packers, for the Philadelphia Eagles, for the Kansas City Chiefs. He has been a part of 3 Super Bowl winning squads. And he has coached some of the biggest names in professional sports, not just football. The names are, maybe some you've heard of: Brett Favre, Donovan McNabb, Michael Vick, Patrick Mahomes, and a host of others that he has written the programming for. When it comes to strength and conditioning coaches, he's one of the absolute best, Hall of Famer, in my opinion, and someone that you could absolutely model your life after because of his unbelievable amount of humility that he comes to work with every day. Recently retired. We were lucky enough to sit down with him to talk about, what it was like going through the ranks of being a strength and conditioning coach. It wasn't a very popular position when he started, and to where strength and conditioning coaches have gone today, as well as some of the most hilarious and cool stories you could ever hear from some of the biggest names you've ever heard of in sports. We hope you guys enjoy this episode. As always, please like, comment, and share. We do not do any advertising, and so we do ask that you guys do us a favor. And if you are listening, if you are enjoying the content, please let us know in the comments and leave us a review if you can as well. So without further ado, let's get you to the episode. I want to get to talking about what we first got into, which was just how you came into it at LSU. You had to was there a...
And what year was that?
1976 was my freshman year at LSU.
Very cool.
And then you get done with LSU and you start to, were you, did you already know that that's what you wanted to do, is go into coaching when it comes to strength and conditioning when you were getting out of LSU?
You know what? I went into college thinking I'd go back to my high school in Monroe, Louisiana, Neville High School, which is a top-notch high school, and had a phenomenal coaches, great head coach, legendaries in the Louisiana Hall of Fame, Charlie Brown. And that's kind of what I want to do, was go back to my high school and be a high school football coach. And when I signed with LSU, after a year and a half, they moved me to linebacker, and I won the linebacker. So I transferred to Northwestern Louisiana and played there for 3 years. One of my teammates was Joe Delaney, who played here with the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And then I played, and Al Miller was a strength coach and linebacker coach, and usually a position coach did the strength training in college back in those days.
They didn't have a separate coach for it back then.
Did not have a separate coach. And our weight rooms was some kind of makeshift room.
Yeah.
And so we did that, but I always worked hard. I loved the weights to help me with football. And then when I graduated, I stayed there as a graduate assistant at Northwestern and coached. And then Al Miller had left a year before, and then he went to Louisiana Monroe. Back then it was Northeast Louisiana University, and he became the first head strength coach.
Okay.
And he said, why don't you come work on your master's, be my graduate assistant, and you can see how you like this field. If you don't, you can always get back into football coaching. And plus it allowed me to go back to my hometown of Monroe.
Yeah, some great advice there.
Yeah,
though,
it was.
That's you took that advice, and the rest
I
is
took the
history.
advice and went there and was with him for a year, learned so much under him. And to me, he's the greatest strength coach in the United States, Al Miller is, in my opinion. And was with him for a year. Then he went to Alabama, was hired by Bear Bryant. And when he left, they moved me up at Louisiana Monroe. And loved it there. Had some of my best days of coaching were there that were so dear to me.
Cutting more teeth there, I'm assuming, right?
We had all the sports. Our head coach, a guy named Pat Collins, he really understood weight training, and he got me help. I was able to get some graduate assistants. He let me use his graduate assistants when I worked out their teams. And, I had all the sports, but it was fun. Those were fun days. And then I had a chance to go to LSU, and I went there, and in the mid '80s, and I was there for 2 years. Kind of got burned out of it because again, it was just me and one other guy
doing all the sports,
doing everything,
not just football. And I got to ask this
Very
question.
crazy to think about. In the
It's too
structure,
much.
the way things are now, it's like that's crazy.
It's crazy. It was too much.
Way too much. But the reason why I want to interrupt just for a second because it's commonplace for coaches to jump from team to team, seemingly in college sports. But this is kind of uncharted waters, right? There's not a lot of strength and conditioning coaches. You were just around for the first head strength coach at that university. And so for you had this opportunity to go to LSU. In that moment, are you thinking, I want this for the prestige of being at a bigger university? Am I wanting it for more money? Is this supposed to be another stepping stone? Kind of what went through your mind whenever you went from Monroe to?
Kind of all of those.
Okay.
It was you didn't make a lot of money. It was a little bit more, but it was a chance really to step up and, to be the head strength coach at LSU. And then when I got there, Bill Arnsparger was the head coach, just an awesome person, great man. I loved him, but he didn't understand weight training like Pat Collins did. And I went, this is going to be a lot. And I was there for 2 years, and I said, man, I just kind of got burned out of it, got out of it for a year. And the guy that took over for me at Louisiana Monroe left, and Pat Collins asked me to come back. So I went back there with him. And then I was there till 1994 was my last year. And then
So a full 10 more years.
Yes.
Okay.
And then old coaching friend of mine became the head strength coach for the Packers. And they told him to hire an assistant. So he offered me the job. And I mean, when I got back to Northeast, I said, I'm just going to stay here the rest of my career unless something just lands in my lap, and it did. And so I went to Green Bay with him. Kent Johnson is his name. He was 20-something years in the NFL.
Nice little change in climates.
Yeah, it was.
And I bet,
and you're born and raised in Louisiana. I mean, it's your first time living outside of Louisiana, right?
A nice pay increase there, though, getting in the NFL.
Well, I was assistant. It wasn't a lot.
Yeah.
It wasn't a lot. And but I knew it would go up quicker.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
more upside for sure.
That's right. And, the Packers growing up were my team. Back when I was growing up, we didn't have the Saints. And my mother was from Wisconsin. So we would always go up during the summer, visit my grandparents up in Wisconsin, and we go watch the old Milwaukee Braves play. That was my favorite baseball team. And we go to the Packer Hall of Fame. And so I grew up loving the Green Bay Packers. And
there was no New Orleans football team back then.
No New Orleans football team.
I got a question for you real quick. So you went from being a football coach into basically focusing on strength training. Was there a part of you that was hard for that transfer to happen? Because it seems like football was your first passion, and you basically got into weight training because you were so passionate about football. Was it hard to step away from the X's and O's of being a coach and just focusing on, preparing the athlete to be a better athlete?
You know what? Not really, because I was still around it, still around the guys, still trying to make them better. And I did have a big passion for weight training and for learning the best and proper ways of helping our players get stronger and more explosive.
Yeah.
Did you have to have an undergraduate, any kind of degree like they do these days?
No, you had to have a degree, but you didn't have to have a
kinesiology or anything like that.
Anything specific. You didn't. And I would say I learned all mine by actually being in there and learning under Al Miller and people like Dr. Mike Stone and
true application of it.
True applications, exactly. And weight training is a lot of it is just common sense.
Mm-hmm.
It is just common sense.
There is a trend now where you have a lot of people that are the opposite of that. They like to spout research and this and that, and they don't have the practical application for it. And I notice that's a common thing that's happening now, but you really can't replace, like you said, the working with athletes over time and seeing, actually testing, what happens when we do this? What happens when we run this periodization program? What happens, unless you've done that, it's hard to really fully understand, and be able to talk confidently, I'm guessing, with strength training.
Yeah, and you know where I got sold on it? I went through it myself and got my strongest I ever was in my life going through periodization program, but it reminded me of the progression of life. Okay, you start off with work capacity hypertrophy phase, then you go to strength and power. One block builds on the next, and it's like you're 5 before you're 10. You crawl before you walk before you run, and that's how weight training is. The same thing, same type of principles. And it definitely brings you to a peak and to the best that you can be if you follow it correctly.
When it comes to, when you get to, I agree with you on that. When you get to Green Bay, though, you have an opportunity now to kind of make a name for yourself outside of, obviously, the state of Louisiana. You're so humble in the sense of, you mentioned how you got this break and that, they were calling and said, who was it that was I don't think you mentioned his name yet, this head strength coach for the Packers.
Kent Johnston.
Kent Johnston is who called you to be the assistant.
Correct.
And, you're like, hey, if something falls on my lap. But the point is that the way that you worked and the way that you cared every day about your position and about the people around you, et cetera, is what made him think to call you, right? I mean, you were a professional, I'm assuming, through and through. And so, he could have called anybody. But he chose to call you based on how you worked. And so I just want to give you a lot of credit that you're not giving yourself in those moments because you had to have been really special at what you were doing for them to think, hey, let me pull this guy who's never lived outside of Louisiana as far as permanent residence goes and bring him up here. And so you're a part of kind of the next most, I say, important era of Packers history, right? You got the Vince Lombardi days. But now you got the Mike Holmgren legendary coaching tree.
Right.
The Brett Favre days.
Brett Favre days.
Brett Favre but not just Brett Favre, but I mean we're talking
Driver.
We
Reggie
got,
White was there.
You got Antonio Freeman back then.
Yeah.
So many players. I mean, Antonio Freeman used to talk about how his fingers would get dislocated every game because of how hard Brett Favre threw the ball.
He could throw it.
Yeah. And so it really would like break his fingers. But no, I was going to say that it's just you had the legendary Mike Holmgren coaching tree. I want to say there was probably 25 different assistant or head coaches that went to other teams from that tree over the course of about 10 years, and including, Mike Holmgren got to become the GM, right, of the Seattle Seahawks.
Correct, he sure did. And that's where I got my break in Green Bay. In Green Bay, when Kent Johnson went with him, and then Ron Wolf was promoted me from within. Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, that is a incredible experience. I'm guessing you got the call though. It's very easy to tell how humble you are, and people that are humble are eager to continuously learn. And I'm guessing that's when you have that reputation, it's easy to want to call on somebody and put them in a position that is probably a very dynamic position when it comes to learning new stuff and implementing new stuff and being able to work around athletes and what specifics they have going on. As an athlete like a Brett Favre, are you creating a program that's specific to him?
You know what, quarterbacks, we do a few little things different. But where the difference is more into their age, or if they have an injury, or just what have you. So we have a couple different types of programs, and we'll put them on them according to where they're at as far as their weight training is concerned.
Just for our listeners, you've coached with, we're bouncing around a little bit as far as like your career path, but you coached with the Packers, head strength and conditioning coach there, head strength and conditioning coach for the Eagles when Andy went to the Eagles.
Correct.
And then head strength and conditioning coach with the Chiefs. And so these are the 3 NFL teams that you've been the head strength and conditioning coach for, correct?
Right.
And with that means that you were coaching some of the, we're talking tons of Hall of Famers along the way, So you had Brett Favre, just on the quarterbacks alone. You had Brett Favre, you had Donovan McNabb, Michael Vick,
Correct.
right? Obviously Pat, Alex Smith. Any other quarterback I should probably mention here?
Those are the big ones right there.
Yeah,
that is.
They're about as big as they get, and so
yes.
you've got tons of different types there too, right? I mean, Michael Vick and Brett Favre couldn't be more different as far as how they play the game. I mean, they still throw the ball really, really far, but
and both of them were strong too.
Both of them are super strong.
You know, and your quarterbacks, you know, they're really smart guys, and all of them are hard workers. I don't think I've met a quarterback that isn't a hard worker.
Yeah.
They were all great. Donovan McNabb, super strong.
Here's a hot take. What's the
He's a linebacker body?
What's the least hardest? What's the position that is the known for being not so much a hard worker?
Can't throw in the specialists here.
Yeah, you can't. Don't throw the punters in there.
Hey, James Winchester works really hard.
Don't talk about Tommy like
He
that.
works really
He
hard.
does. All those guys work hard.
That's right.
And Harrison Butker, he's a perfectionist now.
Yeah.
He makes sure he covers from A to Z. You know, it's just more of an individual.
Yeah.
You know, not so much as a position.
I was feeling star receiver. Have a chance.
I don't know if you could pick on a position.
I know you can't. You
Star
know,
receivers, though.
and the two best athletes that I ever coached was Michael Vick and Tyreek Hill,
Oh yeah.
And it probably wasn't even close.
without a doubt.
Outside of those two, right?
Those two.
Tyreek Hill, it just is incredible how explosive he is. And obviously Michael Vick, at the time, I don't think we'd ever seen an athlete like that in the NFL. They could just take off and just be gone.
You know what? And a wonderful human being, too.
Yeah.
Both of those guys.
Yeah, that's good to hear. The Tyreek Hill thing, man, he broke my heart when he went to Miami, but I understand, you know, the business aspect of it.
He's a special player. There's no doubt. You know, I've seen him front squat 4 or 5 for 2 and bench 315 for 3 or 4. And
Tyreek Hill did that?
And he weighs 180 pounds.
Maybe.
185 to 190.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, he's all muscle.
All muscle, yeah.
He's probably 3% body fat, and
Wow, dude. I didn't realize he was that strong.
he's strong. He's got some powerful muscles. Big quads.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Big quads.
You got, I mean, we could go all day on just stories, on just old stories of all these,
That's right.
of these amazing, but I want to get in a little bit to the professionalism of the position, because it's not just, some boilerplate programs that you're handing out to everybody, but I want to talk about just kind of the evolution of fitness in general, because do you guys get caught up in that as it evolves? Because there's been so much, evolution in equipment and in supplementation, obviously, that we've been a part of. I know that you guys have to be doing stuff different from what you did 20 years ago, but is there something that whenever you were coaching along the way, when you were given maybe a new standard, is there a story that sticks out to you of like, what are we doing now?
Yeah. Things are different, but it's still, this is just my opinion, it still boils down to the core exercises. Some form of squatting, some form of an Olympic lift, pressing, your RDLs, running sprints, jumping up and down on boxes, throwing medicine balls, those type of things. That's got to be your catalyst. That's your main priority right there. And then you pepper in everything else, like the correctional exercises, the prehab and all that. And that's important too, but you kind of pepper that in. But your main stuff is your hardcore exercise. That's what gets you strong and powerful.
Bigger, faster, stronger.
That's right. And, if a team just sits there and does all correctional exercises, they're going to get weaker. Because great strength coach told me this once, the big things take care of the little things, but the little things don't take care of the big things.
Mm-hmm.
It's great.
And that's a true statement.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a place for it and for those other things, and they are important. And you do them. And, to help you become a more of a complete player, a complete athlete.
We've had some athletes be more public about getting some personalized training outside of the team. Patrick and Bobby Stroop come to mind with the quarterback series, and they show his trainer and doing the one-on-one stuff. Is that something that's just become more frequent in the most recent years? Yeah. With Tom Brady's, his popularity with the TB12 method and pliability, is that something that's becoming more and more popular? or is it something you've always had to deal with? Or just now talking about it for the first time?
I think it's becoming more and more popular. It's been around for a long time, and that's just the way it is. And Patrick couldn't have been more compliant with us. I mean, he was awesome. He did everything we've asked him to do. And that's all I could ask of him, So he was great. He was great with us and worked hard. And
is there a story that stands out, though, where maybe where you've actually had to, have a harder conversation with the player about his personal training versus what he's doing with the team?
Not really. I mean, the thing that we would tell the guys, because when they leave there, a lot of them have personal trainers, and we give them a program to take home after the season, then we give them a program to take home after the off season's over. And, the main thing that I tell them, the guys that have the personal training, make sure you're at least squatting and doing some kind of pulling and sprinting, and working your hamstrings good. Whatever else, it don't matter, just so you're doing at least those basic things.
Are you guys training just as hard through the season as you would be in like the off season?
No, the training definitely has to take a back seat to practice.
Yeah.
Because there's so much volume in practice that you can't have the same volume in training. Yeah. Because then that's when injuries pop up. Mm-hmm. So the volume definitely has to be a little bit lower, but you can go fairly hard with the intensity of it, and still do all the big exercises, and that's a long season. So you got 16, 17, 18 or more weeks of training to go.
That's such a long, it
is a long season.
Sometimes we forget about that because it's like, when you were in college or when I was in college, I think we played 10 games or maybe 11
that's
games.
Right.
And it's, when you're doubling that is just.
It's like playing 2 college seasons. Yep. It is.
Yeah, it's incredible to try and, maintain somebody and make sure that they're not getting injuries for that long in a contact sport.
And during training camp, we had good weight training sessions. Mm-hmm. I loved our schedule during training camp because we'd practice in the morning. The guys would get a break, go up and eat, recover a little bit, come down, go to meetings. Then they'd get through and have walk through. Then after that, we'd split them up. Half would come lift weights. The other half would go with the trainers. And we just flip-flop that each day. So we got a good 20, 30-minute weight workout in each day with them. And they worked hard at it, and really it helped flush them out for the next day. They were probably more productive the next morning from lifting that afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
How close do you work with the medical staff as far as like the prehab and the rehab, like you were saying, as far as, helping guys get through those injuries? You know what I mean? Do you work closely with that team?
You know what? We, say on a late Monday, I'd get to visit with our trainer and get all the guys, that were hurt from the previous game. And he would tell me, if there's certain guys can and can't do. And so I go with that. Some guys stayed in there in the training room. And so that's, we just worked around their injury.
Yeah, there's specifically with the Chiefs, they had the first ever Players Association vote, right, where everybody that was a player could unanimously rate their own team and organizations when it came to everything. And Chiefs always score extremely well on everything, but when it came to the medical staff, they got an F. Do you have any story that sticks out to you as to why that could be when the Chiefs get such great marks on everything as far as being a first-rate organization? I forgot the name of the guy, but he's been there forever, and he's one of Andy's guys, that Andy's very loyal to. And it's weird to see that they got an F on that.
Those guys try real hard. They do a good job, and, they do a real good job of trying to get the guys out to practice, out in the, and to play. So it's a tough job. They have their hands full.
Well, they got it's like you see guys like Patrick coming back on that high ankle sprain, and, they had,
Kelsey last weekend.
Yeah, just a whole team of people helping these guys get back on the field, and they're working around the clock. And it seems like obviously
they are. They do have a tough job, and they work hard, and they try their best. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just an anomaly, kind of weird thing to see without any kind of real rationale. I know Clark Hunt came out and said they were doing something different or this or that, but it's like, seems like all the people couldn't care more, like they all are very passionate about helping. So it's just strange to see is all.
If you had some advice for somebody who's coming out of college now and wanting to get into what you got into and basically start, a career as a strength coach, what's the number one piece of advice that you would give them?
Number one is to learn as much as they can. And, and for the guys to listen to you, they got to know that you care about them first. You could know every little bitty thing about weight training. But if you come in there and try to be a tough guy or try to be, a dictator type of guy, they're not going to listen. You just got to show them that you care about them, number one. And then you got to know what you're talking about also. That's number two. But, to me, if I was getting into it, I wouldn't have in my mind, I got to be in the NFL. That doesn't mean that you've made it. Mm-hmm. Enjoy where you're at. Enjoy each step of the process. And, high school, that would be a lot of fun working with those guys, develop them. College, I coached there, loved it. And coaching the pros and loved it. But you got to enjoy where you're at and, show God that you can be content wherever you're at. And then if you have a desire to move up, that'll happen. Mm-hmm. That'll happen.
Some unbelievable advice, man. There's
being where your feet are. It's a huge thing. And it's, something that we talk about with our staff a lot too. It's just, remember, it's great to be thinking about the future and what could be, but when you do that too much, then you forget about the person that you're talking to that's right in front of you, which is where fulfillment comes in,
right.
and good relationships come in. So
because that high school strength coach is just as important as an NFL strength coach.
Oh yeah, think about how many players that you probably coached, at the Chiefs that when you get to talking to them, they're like, "Oh, my high school strength coach,
right.
this guy."
Or my college strength.
They're the one that changed everything.
That's
for
right.
Me. Yep.
That's exactly right. And just being content where you're at. And if you're in high school the whole time, or if you're at a training center the whole time, just stay grounded and try to enjoy it the most you can. We're not on this earth forever. Mm-hmm. So try to enjoy it and be the best you can towards people and try to help them as much as you can.
And if you do the second thing you discussed, I want to make it clear to our listeners, if you do the second thing really well, it's going to really help you with the first thing, which was the caring.
That's right.
So you can't care about people around you when you're so caught up in your own prestige, where you're trying to go, what you're trying to achieve. You don't have space to make these relationships with these players and show them that you care, because your head's in the clouds trying to get to the next spot, and you're not being where your feet are at. You're not caring about the people that are around you. And the phrase that we use in our company so often, that all of our staff knows, is that we have similar position. People come into our store and they're going to start telling them how to, get in better shape or what steps they need to take. And they don't show that the customer, like, hey, I actually care about your results. I actually care about you as a person, et cetera. And so, as the saying goes, it's people don't care what you know until they know you care.
That's right. And, I've noticed, like, anytime I come in 20 of y'all stores, somebody's right there at you trying to help you. I've noticed that. And not every store's like that.
Yeah, I think in the key
it's a dying thing in retail.
Yeah, we appreciate you mentioning that. It means a lot to us. And, we try. We're not perfect, of course. But you see, they're trying to help you, not trying to sell you.
That's right. And the guys that I've talked to when I've come into your stores really know what they're talking about too. Mm-hmm. So that's been good.
Good. We're glad to hear that.
Yeah, no doubt. Y'all have really great stores.
We spend a lot of time, energy, and effort trying to give our guys the best education, keep it up to date. The supplement industry, there's just a million different things to learn. And so, really trying to pour into our guys as much as possible, which I'm sure you did, with your assistants too. It's like anybody that's underneath you want to give them all the tools necessary to be as successful as they possibly can,
right.
Because then you can talk more confidently. I'm sure in your position, you're looking at a guy, who signed a huge contract and, he's a massive NFL guy, if you're not talking to him confidently about what you're saying, then, he's not going to listen to what you're saying. So you
No,
want to
that's
give him
right.
all the information you possibly can.
And supplements is a big part of it. There's definitely a place for that. We have a huge, in the chief locker room, this is one of the more prouder things that I got in there was a Gatorade fuel bar.
Oh, nice.
And blenders, ice, fruit, coolers and place
Full-on
for the
smoothie.
bars. Yes.
Nice.
And, way back when we could use any supplement we wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's just Gatorade,
Yeah.
There's another cabinet somewhere there that isn't Gatorade. There's got
It's
to be
probably
something
up
else in
in
there.
Sherm's locker.
Yeah.
Now the players can get whatever they want.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I was told by, I believe, might have been Sherm. Someone told me that there's some Beverly International hidden in there somewhere.
There's a couple guys that have some in there,
Some
probably
Beverly?
in their locker.
I was say, man, we that's it's like an if you know type of brand. Not a lot of people know Beverly.
They're a good brand.
We've sold Beverly since we started.
I like them. First Farm. We used to have I don't know if y'all have ever heard of this company out of Australia called Musashi.
No,
They
no, man, we're here to learn today.
they were going. I think they started back in the 1980s, and they are really, really big on amino acids.
Uh-huh.
And they developed all kinds of amino acid products and took them to the Olympic Training Center and did tests on them. And Al Miller's the one that kind of got me hooked up with them. And we used them at Green Bay for years. And everything.
These were were they in drink format or like liver tabs?
Powder.
Okay, they're powder.
So you could
This
put it on
is
your
way ahead of
tongue and
its
wash
time.
it down.
Yeah.
Or mix it.
Mix it in
whichever
water or
way
something.
whichever way you want to. They also had protein powder bar. They still have everything else.
probably.
Mm-hmm.
But their main thing was the free form amino acids in powder form. So we would get that and use that, and they would come over every training camp and stay for like 2 weeks. It was awesome. We got some great results with their products. And then because everything over in Australia, all their supplements are regulated.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever they say's in there got
Has
to be in there.
Right.
And so that was good to know.
Yeah.
Well, especially with these, for our listeners, these athletes could pop on a test or something. It could cost them a lot of money. So it's
that's
important.
right.
If they're putting something in their body, it's got to be what it says in there.
And so they were great. And then, of course, the NFL, there was guys got tested, and they said, and they were positive. And then the NFL jumped in and said, okay, nothing but Gatorade,
Right.
So that's how it is.
Yeah.
Now we just
College, it was Cytosport was the first to jump in the game with protein powder. They had Muscle Milk Collegiate, and all that stuff. That was big in the 90s and in the 2000s. But I was told, what was it? There's this app. Was it Aegis Shield, something like that? That all the players had to have. They could They could type in a product, and it would tell them if it was going to be okay or not.
right. And they'd come to us a lot, and we'd look at it and see if there's anything. And thank goodness nobody got.
Better safe than sorry, though. In your
Oh, it
position,
is.
it's
It
like
is.
it's such a I always tell too. If we have athletes that come in the store, I'm always like, just stay away from weird stimulants. Stay away from anything that's like a test booster, even if it's a natural test booster. Just stick with the basics.
Dirty Dan Sorensen. We actually had to we had to reach out to him, have him come back to the store because we had to have him return something because we went and researched even further after he left. And let them know, hey man, we need you. We don't take that.
That's good. That's good. But
That's we build that trust with the players.
So that's all we could give was Gatorade products, and we could put some different bars like up there for the guys. So that was good. I love First Farms.
What's your go-to flavor?
I like that new pumpkin one.
Oh,
Isn't
yeah.
that crazy? It's crazy.
Pumpkin spice bar.
And then their caramel.
Yeah, the salted caramel.
Salted
one.
caramel. That's
Things
probably
like a
my
Twix.
favorite. Yeah.
We just reviewed the pumpkin one, and I think I gave it the highest score I've ever given a protein bar because it's just there's not a single thing about that thing that tastes like you're having something. That's supposed to be wholesome.
I know. It's really good.
It's just a straight dessert.
It's really good, and their products are good over there.
Yeah.
So
you know what they're doing? I heard they're doing NSF now.
that's great.
Which is like now it's like they did informed choice, which it was it's great, but the standard unfortunately is NSF, even though it's such a weird thing to
have to do.
To have to
but
do.
yeah, but that'll help them with with other sports teams, I bet there'll be more out to want to purchase their products because of that.
They're doing like jerseys and stuff now. Did you see that? They're doing like they're sponsoring, let's say, like a high school football team will have the 1P jerseys.
Really?
Right. They're trying to be a Gatorade and a Nike combined.
Wow.
Pretty wild.
That is.
Different kind of thing to do.
It is.
So you are
see that team right there on the right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, pretty wild.
That's crazy.
So how many Super Bowls have you technically won since you've been at Green Bay? Which
one in Green Bay,
one in
two
Green
in
Bay.
I was
Kansas City.
1-1, I'm 3-2 overall.
Nice.
1-2 with the Chiefs, 1-1 with the Packers, lost one with the Packers, lost one with the Chiefs.
Thought you lost one with the Eagles. No.
No, I wasn't there when they went to the
You went
Super
over to the
Bowl.
Chiefs
I was at
after that?
Green Bay.
Oh, you were in Green Bay.
Still
whenever
in
they were
Green
there.
Bay.
That's whenever they were going against Tom Brady, right?
Right.
What's your favorite Super Bowl memory?
It would probably be maybe the one in San Francisco.
Oh yeah, we were there. Oh no,
in Miami or in San
Miami?
Francisco?
Yeah,
In Miami.
yeah, against San Francisco.
Against San Francisco.
Yeah,
And I was just, when we were the countdown, and man, I was so excited that we won. So excited for Coach Reed.
This is his first one.
First one.
Mm-hmm.
And probably because of that.
yeah.
They're all great, and they're kind of all surreal when you win them. You go, wow, I'm part of a Super Bowl team.
Yeah, it's like this is the top of the mountain.
That's right.
That's right.
But I would say that one just because of that reason, because of Coach Reed getting his first Super Bowl.
And for our listeners, by this time you and Coach Reed had a working relationship that spanned over 20 years.
Right. We've been together for a long time.
And so, to watch, someone that you've worked with for that long finally get the adoration they deserve.
That's right. All good things Coach Reed deserves. All good things that come his way, he deserves. He is a special man, great coach, and, he does it without cussing. But
it's amazing. He never cusses.
But he gets his point across.
Mm-hmm. Gives you the look.
Yeah, you feel like you don't want to let him down too.
Yeah,
that's what I.
He's got the disappointed dad vibe to him.
Yeah, you don't want to let him down.
He's got a really special way though of making players feel a part of it. When the players are talking about designing plays, having fun at practice, and I think that just creates more buy-in, which I think is one of his superpowers as a coach. He's really good. He's a good players coach.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, Barry. What Kyle's saying, it's like he lets you be you, is what I've been told by so many players over the years. He lets the players, have their personality all the way. It's not his way or the highway. He lets you be you, but he's trusting you, and he makes it clear to you, hey, that's cool if you want to do it that way, but I'm going to trust you to get this result. And so when you're saying you don't want to let him down, it's because he's telling you, I'm going to let you do it your way. It just better come out the way we want it to.
Yeah.
That's creating total ownership,
right?
Because that person's thinking in their head, well, if I'm going to do it this way, I'm putting my stamp on this is the way that
exactly.
And he just knows how to handle people,
yeah,
and knows how to treat people.
Mm-hmm.
So he's the best. He sure is. I enjoyed him, and Mike Holmgren was a great coach too.
Mm-hmm.
He was real similar to Coach Reed.
Is there any assistants that were in that Mike Holmgren? Because you're not young by this point. You've already been coaching over 10 years, but you were new to the NFL. And coaching in the NFL with the Packers, I'd love to hear. I believe Steve Mariucci was a part of that staff.
He was on our staff. Marty Mordenwig was.
Did any of those assistants stick out to you with the way that they did things, where you could see them?
When I first got to Green Bay, I loved that whole staff. God, they were great.
What a special staff.
We did.
No one knew at the time, but it was
special. Fritz Shermer was our defensive coordinator, who's passed on now. But
is that Pat Shermer's dad?
Yes, it is.
And Kyle Shermer's dad.
I think
grandpa.
I'm not sure if that's Pat Shermer's dad or uncle. I'm not sure. But what a great coach he was, And I'll have a story in the morning walkthrough. They did a little walkthrough in the gym, which was right by the weight room in Green Bay. And those guys would be up there waiting on the walkthrough to come about, and they'd be up there just loud and having a big time. And, I go, golly, he'll never settle this down. And then the minute Fritz walks up there, he says, all right, guys, let's go to work. Boy, they quit talking, went right to work. He had that kind of respect from them.
But he just snaps in line immediately.
Yeah, he was a great coordinator, great person, great coach. He was real good. And Sherm Lewis was our offensive coordinator. He's a real good coach. Nolan Cromwell was on that staff, who was a great NFL player with the Los Angeles Rams. That was a great staff. And my first year there, we went to the NFC Championship game against Dallas in Dallas, and we're beating them in the fourth quarter. And Dallas ended up winning and they won the Super Bowl that year, and we got to coach in the Pro Bowl. But then the next year we went and won the Super Bowl. Then the third year we went and lost it.
That was against
Denver.
Denver and John Elway. That was the first of his repeat. He did the repeat the next year. Yeah.
And then it took about 20 years to get back. So it's hard.
And you got back with Aaron Rodgers. The last
well,
one.
I won there.
You weren't there for
I
it.
won there.
That was how long it took the Packers.
For the Packers, right.
This is 11.
Are the Packers still your team? You'd mentioned that they were kind of your team when you first went to work for them.
My team is the Chiefs.
Yeah.
No doubt.
There you go.
You've been quoted as the Chiefs were your favorite of all the three stops.
No, it was. Mm-hmm. It was. Of course, main thing is Coach Reed.
Yeah.
And me and my wife and daughter have really enjoyed living out in Overland Park and got to watch her go through middle school and high school. And she went to the University of Arkansas and just graduated from there. So that was a blessing for all that to happen. Mm-hmm. And we just really, really enjoyed this area.
Love to hear that. There's a lot of players that stick around, it seems like, because they love living here.
Yeah, this is there's nothing not to like about it,
Yeah.
And you get all 4 seasons, you get some winter, but it's not as harsh as it was in Green Bay. And you get some summer, it's not as harsh as it is in Louisiana. And it's just it is a great place to live.
It seems like the people that are from Louisiana, though, they seem, because I'm Missouri born and raised. I have no living of anywhere else, right?
Okay.
But it seems like Louisiana people really stick together. Like they're very proud to be from Louisiana, especially LSU guys. Fournette had the LSU pads underneath his jersey. You could see the purple and yellow. Right now we got obviously Clyde still from LSU. When Tyrann Mathieu was, with us, he was as proud as you could possibly be.
Oh, yeah.
You know? People from Louisiana seem to have it's like, almost like it's people that are maybe from Texas.
That
seems to be
that's true.
They seem to be so damn proud from being from Texas or Louisiana. I'm like, I don't know as many people that are as proud of being from Missouri.
Yeah. That is a true statement, but it is. People are proud to be from Louisiana. And I was just down there a couple of weeks ago, went and watched LSU and Arkansas play, and that was a lot of fun. And that's the first time I had been back since I coached since 1986. And so it was fun going back and watching Arkansas and LSU play.
Did you ever get back to Monroe?
I do. I just was there last weekend. I sure was.
So you went there as well? I'm sorry. I thought you said LSU.
I went to both.
Okay.
Went to both.
I think Louisiana, underrated state. It's one of my favorite places to go. Like if you like deep sea fishing, Venice, Louisiana, awesome area.
The number one thing in Louisiana, number one over everything is LSU football.
Yeah.
Number 2 is the Saints, and number 3 is high school football.
Mm-hmm.
High school football is so big in Louisiana.
That's what I've been told.
There's some great schools in Louisiana, turn out some great teams and great athletes.
Some unbelievable athletes, and I would say that what you were saying before the Saints came to New Orleans, right? All we had was, I'm saying all you would have if you lived in Louisiana would be LSU football.
That's right. There was a lot of people that did like Dallas, the Cowboys, which I never did. And then, of course,
very polarizing team.
And they played, the Packers a lot in the championship game. One story I got to tell you when I was coaching at Green Bay, and do y'all remember Paul Hornung?
I do not.
Either.
Okay, he's in the NFL Hall of Fame. He was him and Jimmy Taylor, when I was little, were the star running backs for the Packers.
Okay.
He was a quarterback at Notre Dame. He was number 5, and he won the Heisman Trophy. And when he got to there he is right there, Paul Hornung. And so this is when the Saints were coming out with the team. I think I was 9 or 10 years old. And they had a caravan going through the state, promoting them, having some players that were supposed to play for them. And they were coming to Monroe. And I read it in the newspaper, and Paul Hornung was going to play for them. And I told my dad, I said, Dad, you got to take me to that thing. Paul Hornung's going to be there. So he did. He took me there, and they were promoting the Saints, so NFL films, and so a friend of my dad's asked Paul Hornung if he would take a picture with me, and he did. So I had an 8x10 black and white picture of Paul Hornung and I together. I was 9 or 10 years old.
How cool!
That's awesome.
And so I had it in my office in one of my drawers. And then this was on a Friday before one of our games, and they always would bring in an honorary captain every week. And so I'm sitting in my office on a Friday afternoon. Everybody basically is gone.
What team are we with in this
Green
moment?
Bay.
Okay, that's right.
And then comes Paul Hornung, a guy showing them around. And so I got up out of my office and went over and introduced myself to him. And he was so nice. He sat there for 20 minutes telling me Vince Lombardi stories with him.
Wow.
And that was awesome. And I said, I'll be right back. I got something I got to show you. So I went and got that picture. I said, this is you and I in 1967. I put it down on the table, and he just couldn't believe it.
How awesome. What a moment.
And then I said, will you sign it? He said, sure. To Barry, Matt, how you have grown.
I was saying, did you guys get one more photo that day?
We didn't.
Man, I would have loved to have.
That was kind of before the phone, the
no one had a camera.
Yeah, nobody had that. But that was a big highlight for me.
How cool.
Right there.
Yeah, anytime you can, it's funny, because obviously we're not familiar. We're big football fans, but, didn't grow up with an attachment to Paul Hornung. But, there's very few players I'm sure that you would get starstruck by.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great one.
Yeah, he was. And, they played the Chiefs in the first Super Bowl. I remember watching that game. And, that was my team. But my team now, the Chiefs.
Can you give us another example of just a real surreal moment where you're like, I can't believe I'm doing this with these people right now?
Always winning the Super Bowls, those are real surreal.
Are you on the sideline on those games? Where do they have you?
Yes, on the sideline.
How cool.
But they really are. They're, some of your favorite moments. And I've had some of my worst moments out there too.
Yeah.
I can remember when
I was at that Tampa Bay.
I was about to say the Tampa Bay second half.
I was in the first
fun times.
I got surprised with front row seats from one of the owners of our company.
Really?
Came at me and said, hey, I got us tickets, and they were front row. And I got a front row seat to that beating. It was the hardest thing to watch.
It was. It didn't even really feel like a Super Bowl. We went the night before.
Partial crowd.
Played in their stadium. That was the first team to ever do that. And went back right after the game, which was good. But it was different. It definitely was different. I'm glad we had a chance to go back again.
Did you? So here's an interesting question. Obviously, our offensive line was super banged up for that game, and you had inside knowledge of that. When you go into a game that's like that, are you automatically thinking like this is going to be rough? Because you kind of have the inside knowledge on who's injured, who's not injured. And with that game, it was definitely. Our offensive line was getting tore up because they were basically all replaced by then, if I remember correctly.
You know what? But not too farther back, we played them out there and beat them.
Beat their asses that week.
That is
yes.
Yeah.
Tyreek had 200 yards in the first quarter.
I remember.
So it was probably similar to that. There might have been a little difference in it, but real similar. And every game that I've ever gone to, I've had the mindset that we're going to win.
Yeah.
No matter what. I've always had the mindset we're going to win this game. So I didn't have that, but it was a disappointing game, and won the first and won the last.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when you have Pat Mahomes though, it's kind of I wouldn't say it's easy, but you can probably imagine winning almost every game, no matter.
Yeah,
what
you
the
recognize how
circumstances
spoiled
are.
we are at this point.
Yeah. He's the best. No, he makes things happen. It's almost like he can will you to victory.
Yeah.
And I've seen him do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially when we played the Bengals last year for the AFC Championship when we had some receivers go down.
Yeah.
And that boy willed us to win. He was not going to get beat.
Yeah.
You know,
On his bum ankle.
I know. He's the best now.
I mean,
what a competitor.
Well, I mean, like one of the best stats. I think. I'm a genuine like fanatic of sports, not just football, but football is my favorite. And one of the best stats I ever saw was during that AFC Championship game, like you were saying. Marcus Kemp just had gotten. He's been on and off the team. Obviously, a super hard worker, special teams all-star.
Hard worker.
Tons of great things to say about Marcus Kemp.
Yes.
As a player, but as a receiver, he doesn't get to highlight his skills very often.
That's right.
He was out there, and he had more tackles that season than he had receptions by about 10, and he had 4 catches in that game.
I know. How about that?
I mean,
he came through.
I mean, he was 7th or 6th on the depth chart, and just gotten rejoined with the team the last week or two. And so, to see him out there catching passes, it was just like, what are we witnessing right now?
I know,
crazy.
And being in the NFL, you got to, it's next man up. If you're a player and you're up, you gotta make things happen, and show them that you deserve to be there. So it's always. Next man up, no excuses. And, somebody's going to get the job done.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned, it's really high praise. You're saying pass the best, but you've been around again. Donovan McNabb, Brett Favre, Michael Vick. I mean, you said Michael Vick, best athlete you've ever seen. And you say he's a tremendous human and tremendous leader. I've listened to some of his, kind of talks that he's done, maybe motivational talks that he's done, Michael Vick's. And he's an articulate guy, What really sets Pat away from Michael Vick and these, because they seem to be both just very fierce competitors.
And I'd put Brett Favre in there too.
Yeah.
With them. I don't know. Patrick has it's just his will to win. I would say Pat is not just a quarterback; he's a football player. And Brett Favre was the same way. So was Michael Vick, but. It's just that will to win, and and you talk about a very respectful, good human being. Patrick Mahomes is.
Yeah.
I can't sit here and say enough good things about him.
He's definitely done so much for the city,
Oh yeah.
Beyond just, the Chiefs. It's like, he's really, brought life to Kansas City sports in general,
He and such a smart guy, deep thinker, and he's great. He's a fun guy to be around and visit with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was getting compared to Brett Favre early in his career. When he was getting drafted, everyone
coming out of the draft, they were calling him a gunslinger.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
He got an arm like they both have strong arms, can just whip it around. They can.
Crazy.
They sure can.
Crazy. Now, you've been, let's say you were with the Chiefs for as many years as Andy was there, right? As far as until you retired.
All 10 years.
All 10 years. You, I want to say when you guys got there, was that the year that we drafted Travis Kelce?
Yes, he was in our first year. We drafted him. Eric Fisher was our first pick.
That's right. Number 1 overall.
Number one overall.
Mm-hmm.
And was a good offensive lineman. And but yeah, Travis is probably the last guy on the team that's there since our first year.
Yeah, I think he's the longest tenured Chief now.
He is.
That changed.
Was Sherm there for a minute?
Sherm,
Yeah,
that's right.
Sherm for a minute.
Yeah.
That definitely changed. That Andy coming to Kansas City completely changed. I've been a Chiefs fan my whole life and gone through some really terrible seasons as a Chiefs fan. And, ever since Andy got here, even with Alex Smith, it's like it's always the trajectory of the team has always been going up, which for a long time was just not, we had our Todd Haley years and, there was just, there wasn't a lot of cohesiveness with the Chiefs for a long time. And we had, quarterbacks that were, not so great. And so it's been a fun ride to have him, here in Kansas City. And,
it's amazing once you get Andy Reid in how every quarterback becomes much better.
No doubt.
Isn't that crazy? It's just funny, but it's like, man, it comes down to the court. I mean, the coach.
Alex Smith in his last year was dominant.
Alex Smith was a really good quarterback and a great athlete.
Yeah.
Real smart.
Unbelievably fast. He doesn't get the credit that he deserves.
That's right.
There was serious talks about should we go to Mahomes?
That's right.
Yeah.
But you got 30 years of think about this. I mean, hey, Luke, pull up this stat. Show the last 20 quarterbacks for the Cleveland Browns just for fun.
No.
Just for fun.
Oh no.
Since they've been the Cleveland Browns, I don't think they've ever had a Pro Bowl quarterback. Not one.
Now Deshaun Watson,
they've had like 40. I mean, they've had like 40 different quarterbacks start for them.
I bet.
And it just goes back to show you, it's not that there hasn't been other good quarterbacks or that they didn't have good quarterbacks, but it just shows you how important the coach is. Because you can't name a year where Andy Reid was the head coach where he didn't have pretty much a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback.
That's right.
It's just, right. I mean, look at these names, dude.
I mean, Baker didn't get his fair shake.
He certainly did. Remember when Odell Beckham Jr.'s dad put him on blast?
Yeah.
And look at his names. Tim Couch was their original number 1 overall draft pick.
We had him at Green Bay for a little bit.
Who's that?
Tim Couch.
Yeah.
Doug.
I mean, Jeff Garcia was a Pro Bowl quarterback for another team.
That's right.
But you put him to Cleveland. You put him in Cleveland to do nothing.
Bernie Kosar was good.
Mm-hmm. He
I
got paid.
Brian Sipe, he was good.
Pretty wild, man. But yeah, they're that's where quarterbacks
go to. Frank Ryan. Now he was a quarterback when I was little. They were good back there with him.
That's I mean, those are what's his face? Help me out. The number 1, Jim Brown days.
Yes.
Those are Jim Brown days. Yeah.
Yeah.
So of course they're good then. But that was pre-Super Bowl.
Yes. That's right.
Yeah.
It sure was.
Pretty wild.
But I have to say this, that my favorite stadium is Arrowhead. And we have got the best fans here and the loudest.
Yeah.
That is, I love going into Arrowhead every home game and coaching there.
How fun, man.
It's the best. It is. And I've been to every stadium except for the Vikings' new one, which they just played in.
Yeah.
And we're by far, other teams think they have loud fans. They don't.
Let's talk about Seattle, because that's always the one.
Seattle's would be the next one.
Yeah.
Would be the next one.
You give them the credit they deserve there on that?
Yes, they are loud. And other teams can get loud. I've seen this, been to Saints Stadium, it's gotten loud. I've been to Denver, it's gotten loud. Green Bay, but it's not like it is here. It is not.
Yeah, there's times where I'm at Arrowhead and I'm like, man, I wish I had headphones because it's that loud. It's like your head's ringing. Like
it will exhaust you. I mean, Kyle and I, when we moved here, we got season tickets. This is a fun story. This already shows you how the franchise has gone, right? Our first season living here, we bought 4 season tickets. They were $200.
The Bud Light season tickets.
We got a season ticket for $200, Barry. Yeah. And it was 2016.
They were basically giving them away at that point. I was like, awesome.
2016. I mean, this is still an Andy Reid year, of course, and we got the Bud Light pass. What they would do is they give you a ticket on the day of the game, and it would move around based on availability.
It wasn't like specific.
But you were guaranteed a ticket, and you were going to be probably in the upper bowl in the corner, right? But no bad seat in Arrowhead, no doubt.
No.
And it was $200, and now they're $30,000 or something crazy.
Yeah, they're way up there.
Not for the same seats, of course, but the one thing I'll say is the club level. We've been sitting in the club level like spoiled kids for the last few years, and no one stands.
That's the where to be.
Everybody has to. You have to stand anywhere else in the stadium.
I know you do.
Have to stand, which I take a point of pride in that as a fan.
Do you? Okay.
But I say it's sad to watch people having their escargot and their surf and turf, which for real is a thing there, in the club level. And you're like, come on, I miss the
upper level is a different world though.
Yeah, man.
Is it?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
We watched him and I, just the two of us, watched us lose that really devastatingly sad game against the Patriots, AFC Championship Game 18,
where it hit Edelman. It didn't, but it looks like it did.
The offsides.
Yes.
Famous offsides play. We were up there for that, just freezing, snow everywhere. It was cold as could be, But yeah, man, it's just it's different watching a game up in those different parts. I think when I think of Arrowhead, I think of those moments, not the club moments.
Right.
Because it feels too hoity-toity. You know what I mean?
What was you guys' expectations going into that game? Because that was Pat's first year, and we had seen. I mean, you obviously remember because you lived it and you were there every day. But like, he was doing things in that first year that you're like, "What is this?" You know? Yeah. And it was crazy when that was the AFC Championship game. And to lose that, it felt like destiny. I was like, we're going to the Super Bowl. I was like, no quarterback is even remotely as good as our quarterback.
I know it. Know? Well, like I said before, it's hard we were expecting to win.
Yeah.
And could have and should have.
Yeah.
But it
a
didn't
couple
happen.
things changed, you know.
Yeah.
You're saying that you were quoted as every loss feels like a death in the family.
It does. Regular season and then playoffs, it ends it, but it does. It feels like there's a death in the family, and by the time Wednesday comes around, you got to be over it because you start practicing for the next team.
But when you lose this, I would love for you to on the loss of a playoff game or a Super Bowl when you don't have that Wednesday, and you've been thrown out of your routine like that. Is it completely different?
It takes a while, really does take a while to get over it. But you also have to look back. You got to take something good out of it also. Mm-hmm. To me, making your goal is every year you want to win the Super Bowl. You want to be in the Super Bowl and win it. And you're disappointed if you're not, but you're not devastated. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. It's good to be disappointed, but you don't want to be devastated.
Yeah.
Because it's very important, but it's not the most important thing in the world.
Yeah.
It's up there, but it's not number one. And so it does take a little while, but you got to, to me, if you make the playoffs, man, that's like making a college team making a good bowl game. Mm-hmm. And that's a pretty good season. Mm-hmm. So, if you make the playoffs or further down, you got to take something good out of it. You really do. I've had 2 losing seasons in the NFL, and both times our staff got let go. So you don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's unforgiving.
What an unbelievable – I mean, like there are staff out there that says I've never had a winning season, and you've had only 2 losing seasons.
That's a pretty good record, sir.
You know what?
Unbelievable.
Well, it's been around people like Coach Reed and have quarterbacks like Patrick and Donovan McNabb, Michael Vick, and Brett Favre.
Yeah.
You got to have a great quarterback. Mm-hmm. That's number one. That and a great head coach is number one to get you there.
And what you were saying about like losing, have you seen the Kelsey documentary?
I did.
Yeah, where he at the end of that, he's like laying with his daughter after he loses a Super Bowl, and she's like, "You didn't win," and that's like the most human thing ever because I have kids, and I'm like, man. It's so crazy to think about losing such a big game and feeling so down, and it's like your kids don't care. You kind of have to. You have to get over it.
You have to get over it
kind of quickly because it's like they're just kids.
They still need you to read them a story.
Yeah, that's right.
And he's like, "We're happy for Uncle Trav," and he's like, "Not really."
And Jason, I coached him at Philly.
Yeah. You were there for the draft of him.
Yeah, he was awesome. He's a winner. He's a great leader for that team.
How are they different as brothers?
You know what? Trav is a little bit, I'd say, more, I don't know how to put it.
Eccentric?
Yeah, maybe so.
Outgoing?
Yeah, there you go. He's maybe that. Jason is a little bit more serious-minded, But
I think I'm a younger brother, and so I can kind of relate. The older brother has a little more security to him because they were there first. And so you're kind of living in your brother's shadow a little bit growing up, and so you want a little more attention.
That's right. Trav is just a fun-loving guy. He's a fun-loving guy.
Is he strong?
Yes, he sure is.
I've been told he's, his maturity, his willingness to want to be a vocal leader has gone up quite a bit.
No doubt. He sure has. He's been a great leader for that team. Mm-hmm. And what a great player.
Didn't start off as a lead-by-example guy, but is completely a lead-by-example guy nowadays.
Yes. Man, what a player.
I mean, yeah. I mean, we'll probably go down as the best of all time.
No doubt.
I hope so.
No doubt.
Hopefully he keeps keeping these injury bugs at bay.
Yeah, he's a stud. And I tell you what, it would take a lot to get him out of a game.
Yeah.
I don't know, anything about this game or anything, but boy, if he ain't playing, he's hurt.
Really hurt.
Yeah. Guys like him and Patrick, boy, they can't walk if they're not playing. That's how they are.
You excited to meet his girlfriend?
I'm not going to get into that.
You're telling me you're not a big Swiftie?
Try to sneak it in. Try to sneak it in.
That's his private life.
Yeah.
Just leave it at that. She is a good singer. I do. My daughter and wife has seen her in concert, and they loved it.
See,
they did. They loved it.
Is your daughter following your footsteps? Is she going to be?
No, I wouldn't let her do that. She did manage in sports management, and she has a nice little job right now at a country club down in Rogers, Arkansas.
Oh, cool! That's a beautiful area.
The best. It's beautiful. Beautiful, and she loved going to school there.
Nice,
loved it, and loves all the sports. Doesn't miss a thing on their football, basketball, or baseball. She just follows them.
The SEC is a cool conference.
It sure is.
They really do it right there.
They do. But there's not a lot of top 10 SEC schools this year in the football.
It's getting crazy.
It is. Georgia.
NIL has changed a lot.
Georgia may be the only one in the top 10. I'm not sure.
Georgia doesn't look as good as they have previously.
I'm telling you, man, this NIL stuff is getting crazy. It's changing everything as far as how these teams are being ran, and it's given teams that never typically had any kind of prestige. They got deeper pockets.
That's right, and I'm glad to see Prime do good at Colorado. And there's a guy that shows how much he cares for the players.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably why he's being so successful right there. He has a real passion for those players, loves them wholeheartedly, and wants them to do good, probably on and off the field.
Mm-hmm.
And so I pull for him.
He's a phenomenal leader, man.
He is.
He's a phenomenal leader. We geek out on leadership stuff, and he's just somebody that how can you not want to follow?
That's right. I've enjoyed watching him play, his team. Always pull for him. Mainly I've been pulling for Arkansas, it's my daughter, and deep down I always kind of pull for LSU, and then where I went to school, Northwestern Louisiana, and where I coached at Louisiana Monroe.
How about some colleagues? Can you talk through maybe some colleagues that are near and dear to you, where you're following their career and you're rooting them on as well?
As far as other strength coaches,
maybe, or just coaches, people you've worked with that you love how they work.
Yeah, like on our staff, loved all our coaches, and Steve Spagnola, admire him wholeheartedly, and Dave Tobe, what a great special teams coach. There's none better than him. And who I loved that was on our staff, and he was head coach at the Texans for a year, was Dave Culley. And Eric Bieniemy's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
He,
I'm excited to see him get his opportunity.
He'll do good. He'll do well at Washington. They're lucky to have him.
I don't doubt it. I mean, I think he's going to get that head coaching position sooner than later.
That's right. I do too.
And I'm excited to see him get that real opportunity all the way. And because I think he's a great leader of men as well.
He is. He gets the most out of you.
Mm-hmm.
He does. He gets the best out of you.
This new softer generation I hear is having a hard time listening.
They'll be okay.
They'll be okay.
They'll be okay.
They'll toughen up.
They'll get over it.
So I want to get into some fun, just straight fun stories from here on out. Let's talk about training camp. So one of the many duties of a strength coach is you got to do, I think, bed check. Is that right?
You know what? During training camp, I would have to go to the late night meeting. We'd have a staff meeting at night. So my assistants did all that.
Okay.
So I got out of that.
There was never you had to earn
the one with Dustin Colquitt.
No, hey, that's your story. I was going to say, if there's another one that comes to mind.
No, not really. Just him.
Okay. Colquitt's our former Chiefs punter for our listeners. What happened with Dustin?
Well, it was a home game, and he's always got something going on. And I check his room, and I walk in, And there he is acting like he's sleeping in his chair, butt naked, you know.
Just dong out everywhere.
Yeah, that's the last thing I needed to see.
How long was it? Just open
You
the
know,
door.
Yeah, and I
locker
saw it
rooms
and I said, okay.
All right,
And then I
he's
said,
here.
yeah.
You've been to a lot of locker rooms, but you didn't expect walking into somebody's hotel room or dorm room.
Yeah, what a character. Great guy, though. Great punter.
Yeah.
You know, probably Chiefs' greatest punter ever,
Yeah.
you know. And a terrific person. He was a lot of fun.
Do you remember Alonzo Hodge at all?
I don't remember.
I would say Zoe Hodge. We had him on the podcast, and he mentioned how Colquitt got drafted before him, and he was all upset. It's like, dang. He's like, he was told he was going to get drafted by the Chiefs, and then they picked Colquitt, and he's like, "You serious?"
Look how good he ended up
I was
doing.
gonna say, but you know, he gave Colquitt all the credit.
I mean, Colquitt punted for us for what, 17 years?
Something like that.
Yeah.
16, 17 years, and you know, Pro Bowl, and
Oh yeah.
he was awesome. He was a good punter. Good punter, and worked hard. He was great.
Plus, looked good in the nude.
Now I won't go that far.
I won't say it was good.
Best naked looking punter you've ever seen.
I'll tell you one little story in Green Bay that happened. Just talking fun. We were getting ready to play the Buffalo Bills in December, cold game, and we're all sitting around. It's a little locker room in Green Bay, and we're all sitting around waiting on Mike Holmgren to come up and give us his game speech. Everybody's in their locker just waiting. And one of our players, I won't mention any names, he went over and put in a CD. That's back when CDs were big.
Yeah.
And it was a raunchy CD, a lot of cussing in it. And so Reggie White gets up and goes over and cuts it off. And the guy says, "Reggie, don't be cutting off my blankety blank CD." And he goes, "You know, we don't listen to that, not right before a game." And he said, "F you, Reggie." You know, said it several times.
Oh,
And this is a defensive player of the year. This was one of the best players in all of the National Football League at the time.
Right. But the other guy could handle himself too. He's a big guy. And it took the whole team to separate those two. And then everybody got back down, sitting down. And it wasn't 15 seconds later, Mike Holmgren walks in and we go out and play. Thank goodness we won the game. And then they made up after the game.
Yeah.
You know?
It's so
But
fun.
I was sitting over there thinking, wow, what is happening?
The locker room dynamics of what
some mutiny happening right before a game like that.
Yeah.
what music you're going to listen to is a big deal. Didn't Reggie? He ended up being a pastor, right, or something along those lines.
He was a minister.
Minister, yeah.
Uh-huh. He sure was.
But he also was
one of the best defensive ends of all time.
He was. I want to say he was famous for popularizing the club.
He sure was.
The club was his move that he did on the D line that just swat the side of the dude's helmet.
Yeah,
You're not allowed to do that anymore.
I don't think you can do that. Legal hands.
But he would just straight up crush someone on the
would.
side of the head and then go around him.
Yeah.
And when we played the Patriots in the Super Bowl, he made 2 huge sacks using the club at the end of the game for us to put it away. But
Wow.
yeah, he was a great one.
Now, on the lifting side of things, this is fun. This is where it's like everybody can relate. Everybody loves hitting a huge PR. Can we talk about some absolute freaks that you've seen put up some crazy numbers in the weight room that you've coached over the years, that their strength was just mind-blowing? A name that comes to mind for me growing up out of K-State, Darren Sproles. Everybody used to talk about his squatting ability because he was a shorter running back, of course, 5'6", 5'7", no bigger.
Did you have Sproles as one of your athletes?
I don't think so.
It was.
I wasn't
after
at Philadelphia.
Yeah.
But just Saquon gets a lot of credit. You know, there's some of these athletes, their
340
abilities in the
clean.
gym talk about. You know, we hear about what their abilities are in the gym based on just their stature, et cetera. Trent Williams, left tackle for the Niners. Everybody always talks about his unbelievable strength. But I was just going to say, Darren Sproles when I was in high school playing football, hearing that little Darren Sproles, the lightning bug for the Chargers, squatted over 600 pounds at K-State. I was just like, what? This guy was under 200 pounds.
Yeah, Anthony Sherman was really strong.
Oh, I've lifted with Anthony.
Yeah,
Can confirm.
Yes,
He's strong.
He is
Don
every
Terry
bit of the
Poe,
sausage.
real strong. Who was really strong was Derek Noddy, especially in the lower body.
Really?
Yeah.
How much can he squat?
Oh, you know, we never max him.
Yeah.
You know, on their.
But like,
the
what's a
lifts.
what's a
There's,
relative?
there's no
probably-
ego lifting going on in there at all.
No, I can't get anybody hurt.
That's it.
for
That's
sure.
an expensive injury if that happens.
You know, probably at his best, he probably could squat 700 pounds. You know,
Jeez.
This is Derek we're talking about.
And, Derek Noddy.
Yeah.
He's a bull. Looks like he's having a great year.
Oh yeah.
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 He's good. He's a force.
The ladies love Derek Noddy. You know why? Because after they won the Super Bowl in 2000, he donated all that money to dog shelter.
Did he?
I forgot what it was. KC, help me out here.
Peck-
Luke, what's the name of
rescue?
it? KC Pet Project. He covered 100 dog adoption fees after they won the Super Bowl, and so every woman that lived in Kansas City was like, "This is my new favorite player." What a wonderful guy.
So what about bench? You guys bench or do you guys just do incline?
No, we bench.
Do you guys bench? What's the strongest bencher that
Probably
you've probably seen?
Probably maybe Sherm. We had a couple guys, I think at Philadelphia, that was real strong. The defensive end for the Eagles.
There were so many of them. Dang. Back in the era when you were there.
When I was there. But there were some, 500-pound benchers. A couple.
Yeah.
Not a lot.
Yeah.
A couple. Mark Chamar was real strong, tight end for the Packers.
Mm-hmm.
He had really, really good strength.
Was Reggie Scary strong?
He was strong. Bench probably 440, something like that. Good squatter, good power cleaner. William Henderson, who was our fullback, was real strong. Good lifter.
It's surprising to me, I think, for a lot of others, when you hear about offensive linemen, not having a strong bench at all. It seems like the defensive line seems to be very strong. Offensive line seems a lot more technique driven, seemingly, based on some of the numbers you see.
Yeah, and you know what I always say, coaching college now, we did max them and everything. And if you had a good squat and you were good clean, you were probably going to be a pretty decent football player. Really didn't matter what your bench was. But we had this center one time when I was at ULM, maybe could bench 300 pounds, but was a great squatter and great cleaner, and he was all conference. Mm-hmm. Really good player.
It seems like you gotta have some mobility to you to do a good clean.
You
right?
do. You sure do.
And so bench, you can just be a T-Rex.
I mean, it's good to have strength overall, everywhere.
I had a coach tell me one time, because I was a good bencher, and he told me there's no Combs, there's no bench on the 50-yard line. Remember that. I was like, okay. I was like, am I not supposed to be good at bench then? I guess I don't know what you're saying there, coach.
Your lower body.
You were skipping those lower body days.
Yeah,
I was a pretty good squatter too.
No, I'm just kidding.
I'm not like an NFL squatter. Not 700 pounds.
But you always want to be able to have your body to its fullest, make it the best it can be.
Yeah.
And a strength and conditioning program needs to be the cornerstone of every football program. Mm-hmm. It really does, because it can help you become the best you can be. And that's the only way to do it, is through a sound strength and conditioning program.
And I think there's no, to that point, I feel like high school football is really the breeding ground where everybody starts to really just separate themselves, because at this point, everybody's the exact same age, same grade, so on and so forth, getting to that point. And I feel like the high school gym, everybody remembers theirs, everybody remembers the moments, because that's when you start to become a man in real life. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You're starting to lift weight that you never thought you could.
Right.
And, do you miss that part of the job as far as the culture goes? Do you see yourself ever going to potentially maybe join a high school strength and conditioning program again?
Well, I would definitely help out.
Yeah.
Definitely. I don't think full-time, no. But
Sherm was saying he wanted to be a coach. Does he still want to
he
do
would
that?
be good. Sherm would be good.
Yeah, he said he was he wanted to coach at a Blue Valley school or something, and I was like, hey.
He'd have to crank back on his police work or whatever he's doing.
Yeah, Homeland Security work.
Yeah.
Oh, Sherm would be a good coach. He's he knows the X's and O's, and he'd be a good strength coach too.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. I think he'd be gifted at that.
He'd be gifted. He sure would be. He's good. He would get the most out of them. That's for sure. I remember the guy from Philly, Brandon Graham. He's still playing him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
playing for the Niners now, huh?
No, he's still with the Eagles.
Hargrave is who went to the Niners. Yeah.
And Brandon's probably was over a 500-pound bencher. Now he's a little older, so I'm not sure.
He's the longest tenured Eagle now, I think.
I think so. He was good.
Him and Fletch.
Good player.
Defensive end.
Defensive end, number 55.
Crazy for a defensive end to have a good bench because typically they're long.
Yeah.
Big.
He's an
long
old. Graham seems to be kind of a older mold. Of
He
the
is.
End,
Yes.
where they're, it wasn't always about sacks. It was about how much you could stuff a run too.
That's a good way to put it for him.
Back in the day.
Yeah, he's a good player. Good player, strong.
You don't see
Physical.
Reggie White playing D end anymore. Like, you put that guy's structure, he's got to be in the middle now.
I know. He's
crazy.
like a Chris Jones.
Yeah, you see, it's crazy to see. I was thinking this the other day. Hassan Reddick's been having a really great season with Philadelphia again, and like that guy looked like he couldn't even play linebacker in the early 2000s in the NFL. Like he's 220 looking pounds.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
How is he playing on the edge?
I know it's definitely changed.
They're not even calling him defensive end anymore. They're calling him edge.
Yeah, that's right.
That's why all those tackles are getting a little bit, taken off a little early, just trying to trying not to
Speed
get
and
caught
power.
off the corner.
Yeah, man. It's like everybody's shrinking and getting a little faster, versus being stronger.
Yeah, that speed is a big part of it.
When you guys get into the off season, you talk about what you want out of the team, and you're giving them those off season programs. Do you? Is that something that comes into account? Like, let's say, as an example, we're all watching the Super Bowl in 2020, and offensive line gets massacred in that game. And to be fair, Tampa Bay's defensive line was incredible. Do their conditioning get critiqued? Does their programming get critiqued to the point where it's like, hey, you guys got blown off the ball, we're going to have to make you smaller and faster? Does that go into it at all when you're thinking of how to program?
Not so much. Your goal, I follow some sound principles, and your goal is to make that guy, when he reports to training camp, kind of like a finished product, meaning he's the best he can be as far as strength and power, mobility, speed, all of that. And then you try to maintain that through the whole season. And, I kind of just have that philosophy. I just try to keep it simple. Keep it simple. Anything gets too confusing, it just,
People stop following it.
Yeah. So, you try to be as strong as you can, as fast as you can, as powerful as you can. And through following a periodization program, it brings you 100% to your best ability if you follow it correctly.
On that coaching note, do you have a player that stands out to you that you used the word compliance earlier, that complied so well and stuck with the program and stuck with what your coaching was, and you got to see them become maybe an undrafted free agent to, just a kind of a self-made story where their humility and their coachability really carried them through with their own hard work, of course?
There is one that comes to my mind, and this would be at Green Bay. A guy named Marco Rivera.
Offensive lineman.
Offensive lineman. Played at Penn State. We drafted him.
Mm-hmm. He's a late round guy, though.
Late round guy. Mm-hmm. Him and Kabir Baja-Biamila, both of them.
That name. Say that again.
Kabir Baja-Biamila.
That is a mouthful.
Yeah.
Both of them were late round picks and worked their tails off and became the best they could be. Both of them all pro bowlers. And
man, when they signed those big contracts, what a cool day.
Yeah, it is.
What a cool day.
It is. So those two kind of come to my mind just from that. But, I will say this, especially about the Chiefs players, and especially about the last year's team, because I can't comment on this year, not there, don't know the whole team. But they have been the most compliant bunch of guys I think that I've been around, and probably my favorite ones overall, because of being so compliant, taking it serious, and making the most of themselves.
I love that.
Yeah.
And then that's great to hear, obviously, especially after a Super Bowl winning year, to have that humility to, stick with those basics, like you were saying.
Those guys were awesome.
Out of the last year, you got that last crop. There's names that come to mind: Leo Chanel, Trent McDuffie, Jalen Watson, Joshua Williams, all that rookie class. Who are you personally looking to see how they turn out the most?
Well, I think all of those guys have a chance to be really, really good players. Brett Favre did a great job on that draft class. Mm-hmm. They really, cornerbacks are studs. They're really good players, really are. Who did a wonderful job last year all through the season was Chris Jones. He's strong. He benches over 400 pounds. He's built like Reggie White, probably less fat than Reggie. Mm-hmm. Boy, Chris is built now. Mm-hmm. And, what a player.
He's special as it gets.
Special. I
hope we hold on to him as long as we can.
I know it.
That's been a fun storyline.
It has. And what a great year he had last year. And so far, so good this year with them.
It's funny how he doesn't get nearly the credit I feel like he deserves based on the fact of the position he plays. But it's only on the telecast where they give him the credit. It's not, national media in between games where they're talking about him quite a bit,
I remember when we got beat by the Bengals last year up there. And they were getting dressed, and we were leaving to go get on the bus, get on the plane.
No, this is the game where
the regular season game.
3-point,
right?
Had a 3-point game. Kelsey fumbles in the fourth quarter or something.
And the players have off on Monday, and Tuesday's their first day back. And he comes up to me and says, "I'll be in the morning, first thing in the morning." And he came in every Monday morning, ready to go. So he did a great job last year, staying on it, working hard, and I know he did this all season.
I'll say with that work ethic, like you're saying, it sounds like you weren't really worried about him when it came to him coming in late, if you will.
He is
this year.
Yeah, he's going to make sure he works out hard and he's in shape. And he has he really, really watches his weight, so you don't have to worry about him coming in too heavy. Mm-hmm. He's real conscientious of that.
Trav and Jason just had him on the podcast.
He's funny.
Podcast.
He's a character.
He is funny. Yeah, I mean, you've seen that. Mm-hmm. Did you watch that episode? Mm-hmm. The infamous one where his dong fell out during the 40-yard dash.
Of course.
Yeah.
Very, very, very. Popular moment.
Very popular moment in sports history, in draft and combine history. And he was. I thought
the funniest part of that is he was like, I was gonna. He's like, I was gonna wear tights, but then I was just like, I'm gonna be different. I'm gonna wear compression shorts.
I'm
like,
pants.
Those are underwear, dude.
Yeah. He never and so of course Travis and Jason were like, "You mean underwear?"
Yeah.
You mean you were just running in underwear, literally?
Oh.
Yeah. But his story's cool too. Obviously, he was a second-round pick. A lot of D linemen were drafted before him, and so he's proven a lot of people wrong.
Oh, he's one of the best ones out there.
Yeah,
one of the best ones.
We've had some good second-round picks.
Yes, they have. They've done a good job. Brett Favre and his staff, they've done a good job on.
He's an awesome guy that grew with Andy as well, huh?
Yes.
So, you knew Brett when he was a real young guy, huh?
That's right.
When he was just an assistant in
to
Philly.
Coach Reed. He sure was. Man. But he learned a lot, knows a lot, and he's played football, played at Delaware, with Matt Nagy.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's funny.
Quarterback receiver combo. And that's another great coach right there.
What a fun story. Oh, yeah.
Matt, he's awesome too.
We won't be telling everybody what you say here, but how many more years do you think Andy's got?
I have no idea. I don't.
But you have a guess.
Just guessing,
Yeah.
Maybe till his contract runs out, whenever that is.
They would never not
I know. Never.
Yeah.
He could coach here for 20 more years if
God willing.
Yeah, God willing. And but they definitely got the best coach in the NFL. He's one of the best of all times. Look at how many wins he has, and
he's fourth most now.
Yeah,
he just got it.
He'll be right in the Hall of Fame here.
Can't wait, man.
I know that's going to be a great time.
What a story. Going from being a kick, punt, pass or whatever that one of the infamous Andy Reid story of being his story is so funny when he's telling it. He's like, it's so unfair that they put me next to like the third graders. I was like a fifth grader or something like that, and so he looked like he was just dwarfing everybody around him in that little photo, but because of how big Andy Reid is now, you know what I'm saying? You've seen that photo, right?
Of course. Yeah.
He's just like, he looks like he's 100 pounds bigger than the kid next to him.
He coached the tight ends when I first got to Green Bay, and then they moved him to quarterback coach, and then he went on to Philadelphia.
I really enjoyed his podcast episode with Jason and Travis as well.
Oh yeah,
because he got into a little bit of that. He said he got to start off by coaching these positions, and so it really helped him be a head coach, is because he started off with the offensive line.
No doubt. And you know what? Also coaching, if you can start at the bottom and work your way up, I think you are a better coach because
More well-rounded.
You're more well-rounded. You know how it feels to be at every level, and then you appreciate where you're at instead of just something given to you.
Yeah, you were mentioning earlier about just on the strength and conditioning side, there's a connection I feel like you're saying as far as we can get all into the nitty-gritty of the science and stuff, but at the end of the day, the anecdotal evidence of you going through and doing the motions yourself is always going to be, I think, taken the most serious by a player. And so you can coach on the X's and O's all you want, but if you never have coached an offensive line, the offensive line maybe not they don't feel like you understand them as well.
Right. It's always good to do that. You're right. You're right. Like Coach Andy Heck, that's another good coach. He's played in the NFL offensive line, and he's a great offensive line coach. Probably one of the better ones.
I agree. Yeah, man, his son, unfreakishly strong. My God.
Yeah, he's a strength coach for Houston, and his other son plays for Houston.
One of our first ever guest on this podcast, JP Price. He does. He had been doing. Is it John? Is that his name?
John.
John is Andy's son. John's programming for him. And so while we were talking through that, and he's like, yeah, he's just strong as all get out.
He is strong. Big guy. And Charlie, the other son, great player, playing at Houston, and he'll have a good career.
Now, we mentioned this earlier. You're a fan of living in Kansas City. You're going to stay here with your wife and daughter. Is that right?
No, we are moving.
What?
At some point. We have a home down in Florida.
Okay.
And we just
Not
don't.
as many seasons down there in Florida, and you said you liked all four seasons.
I do. But, all my friends are up at the stadium coaching.
Yeah.
So, we have family down there. So that's what usually you go towards family.
Yeah.
My wife's sister, her and her family live down there. And my wife's mother and father come down there during the winter. So that's a good place to be. And
how many years you got left, you think? To here.
Oh, we're moving here probably pretty soon.
No, not keeping a house here or anything?
No.
Dang.
No. Be back to visit, though.
Okay.
We'll be back to visit. Be
even
keeping
more,
up with the Chiefs.
Even more thankful that you came on here, man.
Yeah,
I didn't
thank
know we
you
had
so
such
much.
limited time with you.
Thank you for having me. It's been great. I've enjoyed you too, and been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah, man. We have one question we have to ask everybody on here, and this is gonna be serious. Kansas City known for its barbecue. We ask every guest. You're going to be moving to Florida where the barbecue is probably trash.
It's not like it is here, that's for sure.
It's not Kansas City.
Trash.
No, they don't have.
They got some good stuff, but
but nothing like here.
So let's say you're coming back. Let's say future Rubes is coming back.
Which one am I going to?
Where's your first pit stop? Yeah.
Now I like all of them, but my favorite, I would probably have to go with Q39.
Q39, very popular
delicacy.
Yeah.
It's so good.
What are you ordering first?
They're just everything is so good there.
Agreed.
They are. We get it all.
They changed the menu up now, though, man. I went back and I was like, my favorite thing was off the menu. I was like, no way. First, they stole the cornbread. Second, they took away they got these like.
Got to have cornbread.
Yeah.
With a good barbecue meal.
Yeah. Pork belly corn dogs. They did these things and you dip them in like maple syrup. It was crazy. They got rid of those too. I was like, man, what am I going to even order anymore?
May have to switch to
barbecue.
Might have to go back to.
What am I going to order? A barbecue.
Well, I mean, hey, like
what's your favorite?
The sides are what I think separate.
Yeah, it does.
Spot.
It does.
I think the sides
are great.
Are a huge deal as far as this differentiator. And everybody's got pretty good brisket and pretty good burn
Yeah,
ends,
they all do.
But I think that Q39's how their attention to detail on all of the menu items is what really set them apart for me. So, but yeah, I would say Q39 is my number one. But to be fair, I haven't had it in a long time now. I live downtown, and there's a new one that I've been talking about recently, Wolfpack Barbecue. So before you move to Florida, go try it out. Let me know what you think. Their burnt ends, I think, were the best burnt ends I've ever had.
Really?
Wolfpack Barbecue, and it's got an E on the end of Wolf because the owner's last name's Wolf.
Wow.
But they were one of those classic, like, I think barbecue team, right? Did well. They did like a little pop-up deal where they were doing like a food truck. Then they were in the back of a brewery. Now they got their own standalone restaurant. So they've kind of evolved and they're ascending, if you will. So it's worth trying.
Yeah, definitely will. That good barbecue meal, you can't beat it. Can't beat it. And they're all those places are so good.
Oh, we're spoiled right in here.
Golly. They really are. They're just, none better.
The best.
Louisiana, though, got some great food.
They got some great food. Yeah, they're more noted seafood and things like
Having
that.
some po' boys.
Beignet.
Yeah, that's right. And, and I'm from North Louisiana, and North Louisiana and South Louisiana are like two different states.
Yeah.
It is so different. North Louisiana is more country, and South Louisiana's a little wilder, and you got Baton Rouge,
more
and
Cajun.
New Orleans, more Cajun.
Some swamp culture down there.
Yeah, definitely.
If you will.
Definitely. We still got some swamps up North Louisiana, too. Yeah, I live in the same hometown as the guys from Duck Dynasty.
Oh, okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man.
They're from there.
Robertson?
Robinsons.
Robinson or Robertson?
It may be Robertson.
I think it's Robertson's, yeah. But they're, so, I mean, gosh, so if you, with there's so many connections here, but Sherm and Adam LaRoche, Adam LaRoche at all? Do you ever get out to his E3 ranch?
I haven't, but I've heard Sherm
because the Robertsons have been there.
Right.
So I figured, I don't know if you ever get into that circle, and Colquitt's been there. And
yeah, they didn't invite me. I'm not on that level.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, hey, we cannot express this enough. We're super thankful that you took the time to come down and sit down
thank
with
y'all.
us.
It's very interesting to hear, the backstory of somebody who's been so successful as a strength coach in the NFL.
I hope it is okay. And
It was 100%.
I really enjoyed it. Y'all are awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I want to go back to one last thing before we get off, and that is just the advice that you gave to somebody who was getting started. I think we need to go back over it one more time because I feel like you're such a picture of that, and just in this conversation alone of being able to be happy with wherever your feet are at, being present with where you're at, and recognizing that there's joy in every part of the journey that you're on. And the other part of it was, letting everybody know how much you care.
No doubt. And, God says every day's a gift, so enjoy it. He doesn't say when things are going good. Every day. So it's easier said than done. But you got to try every day. Goes for myself and everybody. And again, easier said than done. But every day you got to try and be happy and be thankful and gracious for that day. And take one day at a time.
Awesome.
Nothing else needs to be said, man. Couldn't appreciate you more.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank y'all.